Hey, welcome. This is TJ with ShopBot Tools, and today's training is going to be doing some examples of some alternative hold-down methods. We're all used to using our screws or our vacuum, but there's sometimes we got to come up with some new ideas. So I'm going to show you some stuff with some clamping and some fixturing. I'm going to show you some aftermarket accessories you can buy, and then we're going to even get into using some 3M adhesive to hold it down to the spoil board just with some spray adhesive without making too big of a mess. So let's go ahead and get started. So one thing that we have now created is a thing called the quick start files, and this is something that's we made available for our desktop, but any of these can be scaled up and used with the bigger machines. But what it is if you look at the actual camera right now and see on our spoil board, we've actually got our 18-inch by 24-inch spoil board mounted on our desktop, but we've got a rabbet cut all the way around it. So we've got that cut, and we use the software, the VCarve Pro software, to have it cut on the negative of 0y and 0x. So it did just that. So when I go and put a board up here or a piece of material, I can line it up right with the corner of that rabbet, and that way I ensure I'm getting my 0, 0 every time. So we've created this quick start jig where if you go in here and look at the basic deck, you'll see this basic deck that you're seeing on the camera. You're seeing the holes that are used at these oblong holes that use so you can go mount the T-nuts into the aluminum extrusion. And you can see right here where there's a rabbet tool path, so it's actually will cut down onto the negative part of X and Y. So this is just a real nice little feature that we've got that can go onto the table, and if you need any of these files, just shoot us an email. We'll gladly send them to you until they get them posted on the internet. But going along with this quick jig, it's a nice thing to know is you can always drill holes in your table, and unfortunately if you have MDF you can only drill so deep because you don't want to expose them. But for this right here, it's just a 3/4 inch sheet of MDF over aluminum extrusion. We're actually going to use the MDF to build some hold down into. So by looking at this file, you can see that I've got these 4 holes down here in the corner. These are just 3/8 holes, and then you can see that I've got 2 out here in the field. So what these are actually holes that we drilled down into the spoil board where we're going to put a dowel pen. So you go to any of your local hardware stores, or you can order them online. They make these little dowel pins, and what we have with the dowel pin is we have a corner jig and we have two tapered blocks that we'll actually use to hold our material down. And again, with these files, not only do you get the basic deck, but there's also here's the quick wedges. Here's all of your different types of wedges you might be using. Maybe you're doing something that's round or a polygon that has more sides that isn't a even square, so you can clamp it in place. And then the thing it has with this too is it actually has a set of projects, and we'll get into them in a sec, but let's focus back over here on the camera. If you notice that here's our 4 holes, I can just push my dowel pins down inside these, and these holes here, I can take my jig and set it right on top. And since these are freshly cut, they are stiff, well, they fit in there. Then I've got 2 out here in the field, and you can put these any which way you want. There's some people that go and put a whole series of holes for doing different sized parts. What this jig here is for is our little quick start file that has the different projects in it. So I'll tap these in, and the way this jig is set up is it's able to fit a certain 11 5/8 by 11 5/8 blank that we have. We set it right in here. The corner's cut out round, so the 0, 0 corner can get down past that. And then these tapered jigs, they slide in place, and then you just use your mallet to tighten them up so that it won't come loose, and now that's held in place. So this is just a nice little feature to make it easy to pull on and off. I get done with my cut, boom, I loosen up my jigs, I pull it out, I throw my next blank in, tighten these down, and hit file part load and go again. So nice little feature we've got with these jigs. And here's one of the project files that we cut. So you get into doing stuff like this, you know, it's slick and it's great, but one thing is you got to start thinking, now what's changed here? Our 0-0 origin isn't the same anymore. We're actually over here is where the corner of this board is, where our 0-0 is down here in this bottom left corner. So if you notice when this jig was created, that right here it measures 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches up. So what I'm going to do is bring up this file and I'm going to show you. This is called the optical ball. And I'll bring up the VCarve Pro file for this. And right there's nothing that we're not used to seeing. The white background showing our blank size and our part in it. But one thing, if you dial in right here and look real close, there's some phantom lines. And where these two come together, that's your actual 0-0 origin. And notice that the corner of this material is over and up. And if I pulled in some measurement lines, I see it's 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches over. And if you go up and check your setup job dimensions, notice when this file was created, instead of having it at 0-0, there was actually an offset put in of 1.5 inches and 1.5 inches. So this will make life a lot easier for you when you do it like this. If this is a jig you're going to use, is to put that offset in. That way you're not having to move the keypad around and try to 0-0 it by hand or by eye. I'm sorry. So you can always put an offset in right into your file, and it'll toolpath and everything will come out just like you normally do at 0-0. So. Yeah, that's an option. The nice thing about this is, if I'm done cutting with this, all I have to do is loosen these out. I pull my jig off. I can pull all these parts off, and I pull my dowels out. And there's nothing left. There's nothing in the way. There's no hardware. There's nothing metal it's gonna run into. There's no clamps. It's all just removed. I'm back to a bare spoil board. The only thing, just keep in mind when you start cutting a lot with these, you will fill up these holes with sawdust. So sometimes you have to blow them out or vacuum them out before you go on to your next cut. So that's something we have called a quick start guide. And like I said, just call in if it's something you want to use. So just to start going along with these tapered little clamps to hold things in, I had to go out to Greensboro, just west of us in North Carolina, a couple of months ago, and I got to work with the local state's Skills USA. And Skills USA is it's vocational programs at your secondary and post-secondary level, and what they do is they have competitions in cabinet making, construction, baking, cosmetology, all kinds of stuff, anything in the vocational trade. So I got to go out and help with the cabinet making. We took a shop bot out there, and we got to do some pretty neat things. So the kids had to build this. It had a drawer and a door. It was a little foot stand they had to build, all out of maple and walnut and some various plywoods. So one thing that they had to do with me, is they had to bring over their part, and it had to be an exact size. And what they would do is they'd have to sit it inside of my jig, and then I would put my clamps on, hold it in place, and then run the file. So for them, they had to bring it over. It had to be a certain size or it wouldn't fit. And being a former high school shop teacher myself, I remember that when you tell a kid that this needs to be 21.5 by 9.5, they're not going to bring you something every time that's 21.5 by 9.5. It's just as learning to use a tape measure seems to be an issue for the next generation here. So what I did with this is I actually oversized it a little bit. So on this top here, it's a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. So then these wedge clamps can come down in and actually wedge a board in there that might not be the correct size. So they could actually be plus or minus, say, 1/8 of an inch bigger or smaller, and it would still fit in my jig. Because I'd hate for them to have to come over there and it didn't fit, and then they couldn't continue on. But it was kind of nice. There's a couple that it was a little too big. So like, hey buddy, think about this. If it's not going to fit my jig, it's probably not going to fit your project. So they'd go back and cut her down. So it's better to be on that end than the bringing it up the other way. So with this jig, here is the jig, and here's what it looks like. It's just a big pocket out of a piece of MDF. So let me set it up here on the camera so you can see it. And the way this jig is, so next year if I have to do the same thing, I can just bring this jig. I don't have to do anything fancy in the table or anything. I just keep this one jig. So I set it up on here. I find where it's 0, 0. I line it up with my rabbit. It screws down in place. Alright. So with this being screwed down in place, now when I do my C3, it's going to come over and find 0, 0 like it did, but again I've got this over from 0, 0, but I don't have an offset on this one because I'm actually going to draw my toolpath off this part. So the way this one would be is I would put that on, they would bring over their project, that would sit, hold it down, and take my 3 clamps, 2 of them to hold it down this way, and 1 of them to hold it over to this way. So this 0, 0 never changes. If they're a little bit extra this way or a little bit extra that way, they're still going to be off the same 0, 0. So the part would be in the same, the V-carve would be in the same spot on that. So that would be held in place right there. And at that point, you'll see that the toolpath for that was just the V-carve that I had here, which is just the V-carve, 0 to the top. So it doesn't matter what part they would bring over. If each piece was, you know, plus or minus a little bit of X or Y, it was all the same thickness and material that we had. I didn't have to re-zero it every single time. So to go ahead and cut this on here, let me save this V-carve out, so you can see how this thing holds in place. Let's go. V-carve skills logo. And with that, I'll open up my ShopBot software. I've already zeroed my X and my Y, but I have not zeroed my Z. So let me do just a quick jog it over. We'll jog it over 4, 4. I don't know who found this piece of wood with a knot in there, but that's all they gave me. And then I can just load my file up. Everything's going to be held in place with my little jig, and it's all good. Okay. So just to think about, you know, what we've seen so far, we had one fixture that used the wedges that was built down into the table. This is a fixture that can come off and go onto anybody's table. As long as you set it up with the 0, 0 at the same spot, it's always going to be lining back up. Of course, I gotta put in the disclaimer, all of you at home, you're gonna have your guards in place and your dust collector on and all of that. We're doing this for demonstration purposes only. Alright, so there's our little thing. So for this it was nice because I had to do 15 of them, and we had to do them, quick as the kids brought them over. As soon as they get done, I loosen it up, pull their part out, hand it to them. Next guy comes and brings his and sets it in place. So nice, quick jig. Made it nice and easy to transition from piece to piece. And so just remember too, when you start getting into making these jigs or fixtures, if you have a part that you're cutting at a certain size, maybe you wanted this to fit these little plaques, you need to make sure that when you go and cut your jig out for it, you give it a little bit of a tolerance, because the shop bot will cut it exact to that dimension. So if you have a 6-inch circle and you put a 6-inch pocket for it to come out of, it's probably not going to fit in there. It'll go in, but it might not come back out. This next jig I'm going to show you is one that I use for cutting out little medallions at our training. So I've got these medallions here that I've got several of them already cut to size, and all I want to do is show how to do 3D carving. So what we would do is, it shows right on the jig, mount it at 0, 0 is where we would mount it and screw it down in, and then the plaque would fit right down inside of it. And this is just a friction fit. It actually fits really good or really tight right now because the humidity is up here in North Carolina. So then I would bring it over and zero off the top. And this would be, I could just pull this plaque out. Maybe I had to flip it over, do a 2-sided carving on it. I'll show you the file on that one. So really all that one is the Plaque Jig. So there's the jig with the different plaques. There's my jig, and you can see there would be the plaque. Here's the original plaque over here that I had, and then here's a little bit of a distance in between. It's a 0.01 in between there, so I put a tolerance on it so it actually pocketed it out a little bit larger. So I've got that fixture, and then I can sit here with my other wood and just sit and cut plaques out and have all these plaques ahead of time, and then I know when I go and create my 3D carving, that 3-inch circle that I cut right there fits in there very nicely. So just another quick jig to show you. But this one's been real nice for training. I throw it up every month, screw it down at 0, 0, do my C3, bring my my ball nose over here, C2 it, have the new students design their 3D, and then we cut it right into that plaque. So another one that's kind of neat to show is, these are all ones that are nice because they're easily removable. The one I was looking to show you here this is the one that we did in Atlanta last year at our IWF show. So we cut these plaques out. So if you look at the camera right now, I had all of these wood chunks made for us ahead of time. All of these were 3/4 inch and all the same width and same length. So all we did was we had this one desktop set up, and that's all it did was cut the 3D clip arts out for all the different armed services. And then when people would come by, we'd hand it to them, thank them for their service, and throw the next one in. So if you look at the picture, you can see where we got a little bolt right there, one underneath the sawdust, and then there's the same thing over here in the X. So what I could do, as soon as that thing got cutting, move it out of the way, hit the 4 clamps off, and throw the next piece in, bring it over to those bolts, so it was 0, 0, and hit enter and start cutting again. So pretty slick little jig. The only downfall about something like this is now I've kind of got these 4 clamps and I've got them bolted into the table, so I've really now dedicated my table to this. If it's something where I had to run 1,000 of these or something where it's a dedicated machine, it's not a big deal. But if it's a community used machine where it's this one day and that the next day, you got a lot of time into setup. Another thing, look at those red handles. I think they made them red for a reason, so he pointed out to us. You run into those with your bit, and they're screwed down, and they're steel screwed down into your table. You're probably going to break your bit. So that's where when you get into drawing your files, you'll actually want to create a different position for a different home position. So another thing that we have, and I've been getting real fond of this one lately, and this one's called it's your regular old nail gun that we're all used to using, our finished nail gun. This is a gun that's made by a company called Omer, O-M-E-R. But instead of shooting the steel nails that we're used to, it actually shoots a plastic nail. So this plastic nail being shot, it won't matter if we run into it with our bit. The bit would cut right through this, just like it cuts through the different materials. If it was the metal nail, it would ruin a bit. But it's a real nice little gun. It doesn't hold up the best for like oak or maple, or real hard or wood, but for you to put it down into, through plywood or something into MDF, it's a good holder. It does hold really well. The thing about it too is when you go to snap them off, it usually breaks the nail off inside and leaves it nice and flat here, so you don't have to come back and sand these. So that's another thing that's real nice about that gun. So just wanted to show you. Alright, I think I've got two of them left here. My favorite two we'll spend a little bit of time on. But before I do that, I did have a couple people when I sent out the email about alternative methods. I said, hey, what do you have that you want to share? What works for you? So Bob Eustace sent us this from way down under, who has a shop, Bob, and he uses these cam clamps. They go down in little T-slots, and I believe he said he got these from Rockler. So the way they work is you get them up close, and then you pull this lever, and it sucks it in tight. And he's got his whole table set up with these. So he's really got a great table set up for doing fixturing, built right into his table. Here's another one that was sent from Gary Mendendahl, like the Glacier. He got these from Fez Tool. And the way these would work is he's got the spoil board, and it's got all the holes in them that fit the size that's attached to the bottom of that clamp, and that just sticks down inside the hole. He moves them wherever he wants. He can move it longer, shorter, wider, or narrower, and then these slide up close, and you pull the lever, and it puts the pressure right on. And this is from Fez Tool, is where these come from. Alright, so the two that I have to show you are one of them is one that we can purchase, and one of them is a homemade one. So the one that I want to show you that is one that's available is there's lots of different companies out there that make these little V-clamp type vacuum clamps, and this one here is called a V-clamp, and it's by vac-clamp.com, and I'm a big fan of this one. I like using this one a lot. So what you can do is set it right up on your table. I'm going to zero it right along my edge right here. I'm just eyeballing it right now. Hold that in place. So these are great. The only thing is you want to make sure you're not cutting down inside of them, because you don't want to wreck that gasketing. So what it is it hooks up to your air compressor. You're going to need a big air compressor that's got a lot of volume in it. It goes in, and it goes into its little valve. It puts out air here, and then this is a gasket that goes all the way around it. So that gasket, you can be pulled out and moved to these different tracks for different size material. So let me plug it into the air, and we'll try to hold down our piece with it. So it just blows out air right here. So what I'm going to do is just kind of eyeball getting it close to flush on this edge. And if this is something that we were setting up to run and mass produce, I'd have fixtures and stuff to make it just right. But just by setting it in place, get all the dust off, setting it in place, apply pressure down on it. Now it holds it in place. So now it's stuck on there. And it holds really well. It's a neat little clamp. So this is great and all. We're now ready. It's clamped. It's ready to be held. We're not at 0-0. Let's set up the machine and cut something on it real quick. So first of all, let me make sure that I move my Z up to a safe height, which it is, and I will jog home. And while it's jogging, I'm going to measure how far over it is to the edge of that material. So it's 9 3/8 over. So there's a couple different ways here. We could put an offset in, which we already showed you, so let's do something else here. Let me actually move X 9.375, which is going to move that X over. And there it is right over the corner. And now I can come up here in the ShopBot software and go 0 X axes. And as I do that, watch how this X here changes to 0. 0X. Oops, sorry, it's thinking. Got a lot going on here. 0X, so 0, 0. So that's now my 0, 0 point. So I can still draw in my VCarve Pro at 0, 0, and it will it'll come out over here. So let's first put in a tool bit that we'll want to use. And let me do a page up. We'll put an 1/8" straight bit in. Let's see if somebody's got my wrenches. If you have a spindle, like the one shown here, or if you have one on any machine, you're going to want to make sure that, one, you do your warm-up routine, which is a C5 is your quick command. Do that warm-up routine. And every time you pull a bit out, pull that bit out, check the collet for wear and tear, pull it apart, knock the sawdust, blow it out, and make sure you spring it back together. And do this. If it falls out, the spring is sprung, you need a new collet. But make sure this is together before you put it back in. This is the correct way to do it, and it's going to save you down the road. I sure don't want to be buying a new spindle just because of some silly mistake. So I'm going to put my 1/8" straight in. And with these, I go snug, and then I go just a little bit more. I don't need to go prove how strong I am to the thing. Alright, we're good. This will be the part where I get talking and not paying attention, forget to do my C2, and then all you guys that are on my chat window here start going, giving me heck when I break a bit. So I will make sure I do it now. You'll get me later on in the training, don't worry. Alright, remember to move that alligator clip. You wouldn't believe how many calls we get a week. Oh yeah, can I buy just one of those black cords that you sell? Alright, so we're good. Let's go in and create a file real quick. Let me close out some of these. So, let's open up a new VCarve Pro. And I'm going to measure my piece over here. It is 6 3/8 by 6 3/8. Create a new file. I said it was 6.375 and 6.375. It's 1/2" material. We don't need to know exactly how thick because we're not going to cut through. If we did, I'd say get your calipers out like this and do a caliper. See if it's actually 0.5 or if it's 0.51 or is it 0.49. What is it exactly? So let's just bring in a DXF here and cut something out simple just so you can see it hold. Oh, who doesn't want to cut the ShopBot logo, right? So we could take this, I'm going to hold shift, do a rotate, that way it rotates in increments. And the center and the material. Again, if I hold shift and shrink, it shrinks it in right there. So I know my bit's not going to get down in there, and we know nobody would in this class would want to steal that. So let me just do a pocket. Well, how deep do we want to go? That's something where I'm using this plastic here that's 2 colors. So I would like to get down into the blue to expose the blue. So I will use my calipers and say, alright, if I cut down 0.07, I should see the blue. So 0.07. Get that 1/8 inch bit that I just put in. And I'm not gonna worry too much about this stuff right now. We'll just pocket logo, and I just want to do a preview. No vector selected. Alright, now the chat window is going to start blowing up. You're starting to get ahead of yourself. So let's select all the vectors. Calculate. So let's see if it actually looks good. Maybe it's not big enough logo for the 1/8 inch bit. I preview the toolpath. I'm already seeing some stuff that I don't like. Let's give it a fill color. It's not doing the full logo. It's not doing the full B. So I need to stretch it. Or I'd have to change bits. Whatever the case might be. So go ahead, we'll stretch that out. To recalculate it. Calculate. Reset. Preview all toolpaths. So that's right, it's how it's supposed to be. We're still not getting through the bottom. So, and we're missing this. So this is one that you probably actually want to use a smaller bit for. We end up making this too big for our block. Not giving up though. Can offset that. There we go. So we'll go ahead, we'll cut the pocket the logo, save, pocket logo. Another thing too you might not always know is you can go right here and go output direct to machine. So if your X and your Y and your Z is already done, you might as well just have that clicked if this is a computer you're using. Run pocket logo, start. Is the right bit in? Yes. Is it zeroed? Yes, we zeroed it to the top. And go ahead and turn your spindle on and start your cut. Alright, so there's our file run. I'm going to move the out of the way so we can see it. And there's our piece. held right on there, nice. It held right on. Looks like we need a little bit smaller bit. Could have got in a little bit better detail, but I can just kill it right here and pop it off, and it looks good. Shopbot logo put right on a 2-color plastic. So that's that one. I'm going to unscrew this, and I got one more to show you. This is with some spray adhesive. This one works great. It's a really nice thing. However, it gets a little messy. So whatever you got laying around, you want to make sure you don't want any spray on it. You better move it out of the way. So sometimes screws aren't an option. Sometimes I just don't want to deal with tabs. You got some piece that you need, maybe in an acrylic or plastic, where it has to have a perfect edge, and with a tab, trying to sand it afterwards just isn't going to work for you. So this is a 3M spray adhesive technique. Alright, so here is our 3M spray adhesive. It works great with plastics. Haven't done a whole lot of hardwoods with it, but these plastics. So think about this. What we're going to do is we're going to spray the back of this, we're going to spray the board, and it's going to hold it on there. And it'll hold it on there good enough that we can go ahead and do profile cutting all the way around it, and then peel it back off when we're done. However, whatever the spray is touched is going to leave a residue, and it's going to get nasty. This is a clear piece of plexiglass. It just has some blue cover on the back side. Notice here, whenever you have loose stuff, you want to make sure you pull that off if it's going to be on the top, because it'll get sucked up into your bit. For us, this is right on the back. So I can just spray this right here, spray this, and have it glue down to it, because that's going to get peeled off anyways. If I had like the Shopbot one that we were doing, where that was the good face, I could just take the painter's tape, and cover this back, and then just spray this. This right here will keep you from getting any of that nasty all over your part. So you just spray that. So kind of simulate what we're doing. So that's exactly what I'm going to do with this guy right here. I'm going to put it on the back because I don't want to spray my good side. So saturate it pretty good. And this stuff, if you just read the instructions on it, it'll tell you how long it needs to sit and whatnot. But you do have to do both faces. Oh. One thing I don't like about screws and MDF is you probably can't see it well in the camera, but it leaves these little dimples on there, and then you kind of lose your flat area. So, but you can push them back down pretty easy. So, all right. Make sure you flip that sucker upside down and clean out the nozzle too, or you'll have a can of spray adhesive that you can't get into. All right. So give this a sec to get tacky. You can read on there too how that needs to work. But while that's doing that, I am going to go in and let's create a file here. No, we don't need to save that. So let's create a new file. Our piece is 10 by 9 by 10. So we got 10 inches in the X, and we have 9 inches in the Y. I actually used my calipers earlier and figured out how thick this is, and it's measures 0.178 thickness. And I am going to zero to the top, and I hit OK. Now let's just cut something out real simple. This is kind of a neat trick here. Let's just take and create a square. Say we'll go 4 inches by 4 inches, and let's take this guy. We'll rotate. I don't know where this. I learned this one from Ryan, who was my trainer when I started training here, so I don't know where he got it from. You can just rotate that, create an arc, and boom, you got a nice little heart. So I'm sure that was one of James's or something that he got, but it's just a quick heart. And while that's This is getting pretty tacky. So I'm going to go ahead and just line this guy up with 0, 0. That holds right in place there. Alright, so plexiglasses, there's so many different types of plexiglasses and acrylic, so check with what material you have when you go to set your tool path. This one I actually know is something that they use for cutting. They put golf cart windshields out of these, so it's able to be cut at a high. It needs to be cut at a high RPM. So if I said it was 0.178 thick, I'm going to go 0.18 deep. I'm going to go in and select a bit. I'm going to use a 1/4 inch. I'm going to use an O-flute up spiral right here, 1/4 inch up cut. And I'm going to go ahead and hit OK, but I am going to come back over here and do some modifying. Past depth, I'm only going to go 0.125. I don't need to worry about that. I do want this to be a higher, I want that to be a higher RPM. And the 3 inches a second is fine for this. So I'm not concerned about that one. Alright, just double checking here. I know when I get talking I don't pay attention. So let's just select it. We'll go on the outside, go conventional. I don't need to add tabs because it's all glued on underneath here. And let's just go profile heart. Calculate. Warning. As many times as we've seen the screen, it's easy to click through. Check it. That one time that you don't, instead of it saying 0.178, 0.18, it's going to say 1.8. Trust me, my spoil board at home has a reminder for me to check that every time. So good, I'm happy with that. Preview it just to make sure it's the way you want it. Looks good. I am going to just slow it down just a little. If I remember this plastic, it needs to be about 2. So know your materials. If you change anything, hit calculate. Alright, so let's go and save this. I do not want to go direct to my machine. I need to re-zero it and change a bit. So, profile heart. Alright. So, right now if I said jog home, that's not going to go all the way over to the corner. And why is that? Well, that's because earlier today, and we moved the 0 over to there. So just to fix that, so I can get it back, I'll just do a C3. Just 0 my X and my Y with the proximity switches. And then the last thing is I need to put the bit in and 0 my Z. Okay, so let's just do a jog 2, 4, 4. Move this over. Again, I'm changing a bit. I'm going to pull it apart, make sure it's good, spring it back together before I start cutting. If your threads aren't going on quite right, don't push it. Take it back off. Check. Yes, one thing you don't want to do is mar up those threads on that spindle. That's not an easy fix by any means. Now you got all these plastic chips laying around from my previous cut. Make sure they're not in the way when you 0. And if you ever feel like you got a false 0 reading, just do a C2 again. Just rerun this 0 routine. Some people like the icons. I've been trained to do my, my cuts too. C2, quick command. I can just type in with the keyboard and get that. Alright. So we're zeroed in our X and our Y and our Z. Now I can file, part load, and we'll show how well this glue holds down. Profile heart. Okay, now it's going to ask me, did I put the right bit in? I did. Did I 0 it to the top? I did. And make sure your spindle is in the on or the router's in the on position before you hit OK. Safety guards in place as always. Boom. The heart didn't move. No tabs needed. So, as well as the stuff does hold, it does come off pretty easy too. And all I keep is a little flathead screwdriver right by, so I can just go in and pluck the parts out of there. And there's the bad part. The scrap, I can pull that out of there. It pulls up everything underneath. And then this one here, same thing. I'm just going to pull that up. Leaves a little bit of residue. Again, it is messy, but I can take and pull my tape or my backing off this. And there's my clear heart. I can just take my air gun and blow it off, and then I've created my plastic heart. So, again, this thing now has got sticky around it. It's kind of a pain in the butt. I can surface it. What I have at home on my tool is I just have a big 3 foot by 3 foot piece of MDF that I just screw down to the table, and that's what I spray on. That way I'm never actually spraying my spoil board and getting it all dirty. So, alright, just a few alternative methods. There's a ton of different hold downs. We could sit here and do them all week long, but just thought I'd show you a few that I've been using lately and thought they could be useful to you. Any of these files that you want or any questions you have, again, my name's TJ, and you can email me or call in. It's TJ Christensen at shopbottools.com. You can find me on the forum or online too for the spelling. But thank you, and we'll see you next week.